And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because here I am trying to do my thing and realizing, oh, I'm not feeling real good. We're 3 hours to air. That's a bad time to go ahead and call things off. And part of this is to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble, and you can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. Shujin. Good to be back. Like I said, yeah, I'm a little under the weather, and yeah, I'm not really thrilled about it, but as the expression goes, the show must go on, right? However, things have turned out a little bit on the odd side. As promised, Tech is nowhere to be seen, which is perfectly understandable. He's got a real life to deal with.
Tech.
Which means, unfortunately, from the left-hand coast, Io gets to join me and be all on her loneliness.
Like I'm really complaining.
It's all good, right?
Yeah, I'll just be eating Deets nuts.
You can go right ahead and do that. That's perfectly fine by me.
I found some little meat bites at the Amazon Fresh. They were less than $2 for just a little bag. And I was supposed to eat them and torture you yesterday about them. I'm doing it tonight.
Perfectly reasonable. So it's good to
I
be
am
back with you.
evil.
Yeah, evil, but not necessarily in a bad way. That's possible to do. It's also possible to be opposite. I mean, Darth Vader was lawful evil. He wanted to bring order to the universe. Just by way of dismembering people. I mean, order is kind of, a laudable goal.
He was lawfully evil? Well, yeah, the Emperor is chaotic evil.
No, he was lawful evil. And then you've got chaotic good, which is Deadpool. Or just chaotic.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that.
Actually, I think he's chaotic neutral.
Well, he is pansexual and bisexual, so yeah, I guess that does qualify. Sure, I'll go with that. So, hi. Yeah, it's us. I told you, it's been one of those weird nights for me. And if you want to go ahead and have your input on this whole thing, feel free to join us over on YouTube as we're recording, because then you could be part of the live chat over there, which is where my thumb is pointing over there. So, Stephanie, good morning. Good to have you. Seeker, hey, you made it early. Fashionably late is normally your shtick, so good to have you. I hope you actually, put on a two-piece suit for us. Socks is fine. Entirely up to you. And it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, like I said, I'm not having a really great day. We had a lot of folks, several folks, call out the last couple of days over at the shop. So I'm wondering if there's something kind of going around the shop. I'm normally outside the vast majority of the time. I have to walk through for, going to the bathroom or for break. So I don't really interact with most folks. And considering what I talked about last week's show with interactions with people, there's at least one person that really doesn't want to be around me, and I can't imagine why. Then again, that doesn't exactly change anything, because wasn't really somebody that wanted to be around anyway. Just more pointed, sticky kind of thing now. Is what it is. Oh, by the way, I'll pass this one along for you. You maybe, I'm not pulling the old man card on you, Io. You may be too young to recall this, and I say maybe, because there's federal regs involved in this one. We got donated at the shop this week an honest to God, actual branded by name, old school design set of jarts.
Oh, shit.
Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the term, jarts was a brand name version of lawn darts. Try to imagine horseshoes, only you replace the horseshoe with an oversized dart, almost literally, with a big, heavy, slightly pointed, heavy metal tip at the front end, at the business end. Well, these things were super popular in the 70s, and several kids got hurt. Some adults got hurt because they were impaled through the cranium because outdoors, darts, watch this, and booze are a bad combination in the middle of the summer, okay? So, if memory serves, the federal regs came down. The Consumer Safety Board, I believe is who it was, basically said, no, you're not allowed to sell those anymore. Redesign them. Which they did, and they changed the having the pointy end into basically just being a domed heavy metal part, so that when it lands, instead of digging into the ground, it stops, thumps, and kind of rocks like a, I don't know that everybody remembers them, the Weebles. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. There's a commercial I gotta find later. Great, somebody remind me about that one. Well, yeah, we got a set of these come in. And I found them in the box of stuff, and I gathered them up, and I'm just like, I'm taking pictures of this. I have not yet posted them so that folks can see them, because it was just too cool, and I brought it inside to one of the managers, and I'm just like, hey, look what we got. And he looks at me, he's like, ooh, yeah, those are going into the metal recycling bin now. Good call.
Damn it.
I mean, could we have sold? No. No. That would be dangerous. Because somebody would probably in the shop try them out. Never mind the whole dropping on top of someone's head, just the idea of somebody launching them to try to hit the ceiling in and of itself is just reason enough not to put it out on the shelf for anybody to check out. So, yeah. So there's that. So, anything good for you that you want to pass along before I get rolling?
I got the COVID and flu shot today, and my arms are hurting. And I made sure that they put one shot in each arm so I could tell which one was reacting, because I reacted really bad to my Moderna, my third Moderna shot, and I reacted really, really bad to my shingles vaccine. So I can never actually have the other shingles vaccine, which sucks. I'm at risk. Actually, it's not that I can't ever have it. It's more like if I have it again, I better have Benadryl and an EpiPen near me. That's how quick my reaction was.
That's fair.
So I'm a little sore. We went out and got groceries. We went out and did some other things. Did some self-care. And I don't know exactly how much I walked today, but I gave this one lady a real bad, how dare you steal what I was going to use thing. I got told to get out of the car to grab one of the shopping scooters that some of the shopping places have. So that's what I did. Because this lady darted into the handicap parking that we were about to use. And as I sat down in that scooter, she looked at me, glared at me, pulled out her handy pass, and stuck it on the mirror. I just ignored her, backed up, went shopping. She didn't want to sit on this thing either. I think I've got second-degree burns on my butt. It was out in the sun too long. I'm a nice person when it comes to those carts, specifically those ones. I bring them back into the store. Why? Because too many people think, "Hey, yeah, I got one of these shopping carts. I'm just going to take off with it." Too many people need them. Um, but yeah, and as I was scooting into the store, she followed me in, was glaring at me, and there was a second scooter right there inside. So she could have taken that one. Nope. So we went, got all the groceries that we need, and we've got a trip planned later this month. We haven't had an actual honeymoon, and he's got plans and plottings, and that's not for general consumption, just so you know. But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
we're gonna go for a honeymoon.
Cool. I hope things go well. And as someone who once upon a time ago was a cart retriever, and even in the dead of winter, just know that it's appreciated what you do.
Oh, the metal carts that you push?
Oh, yeah.
I will leave them where people can grab them, especially in the zones. There's places that are usually painted where I would leave one so that they can be grabbed, because sometimes the cart retrieval areas are too far for people to walk. And I know that my other half appreciates having a cart nearby to grab instead of having to go all the way into the store or into one of the places where the carts are supposed to be returned. But it's the ones that are specifically for accessible, different, whatever. You know what the word I'm talking about.
Yep.
For the people that have to use those shopping carts, I like trying to make sure that they get back into the store and charged, because there's been a few times where I've sat on one of them and I've done a quarter of my shopping and it just and
Yeah.
I had to ditch them. So I like making sure that those carts get back into the push ones, the manual push ones. No. Yeah, I know I'm bad for that. I know I should probably bring them in, but I specifically put them and leave them in specific places so that they're easier for people that need to use them, grab them, instead of chasing after them. Unless they're the ones that have the quarter or dollar coin that you have to use, or special token that you have to use in order to access them, then I return them where they're supposed to be.
Usually it's quarter, at least for Aldi's. I don't know about any of the other stores or by brand name, but be this as it may.
Uh, Depending on which store it is in Canada, it could be a quarter or it could be a loonie. It might even be a toonie.
Oof. That's a bit much.
But you get your coin back.
You do, but still. As a reminder, up Canada way, the loonie and toonies are the $1, $2 coins, respectively, whereas here in the US, it is extremely difficult to get $1 coins, and there is no such thing as a $2 coin in the US currently.
There is a $2 bill.
There is a $2 bill, and unfortunately, they are so rare, they are often mistaken as counterfeit property. Which, considering they were originally issued back in 1976 as a bicentennial thing, and it's several years after, and they don't circulate nearly as often and they don't get printed as often, why bother? So, yeah.
I happen to like the $2 bill. I actually happen to like the $1 American coin, not the silver, just the one that was actually in circulation. But I think that they made it too small. If they'd made it more like the size of a loonie, probably would have kept. It probably would have caught on, because if you can't feel the differences in your coins, you're going to give the person the wrong change.
Yep, and considering that we at one time had in fairly decent circulation 50-cent pieces, hey, why not? They are very widely accepted as being more desirable now because of the specific metal content, because of the way that they were made at the time. The 50-cent pieces they were pretty chunky. They're really good
I
pieces.
have I have a couple.
Yeah.
I have a couple of 50-cent pieces about the 1970s. I have a couple of the American dollar coins. Somewhere in this house is a poppy toonie.
I remember hearing
And
about those, yeah.
yeah, about 20 years ago they started giving out poppy quarters, and then it became different types of quarters with different things, and they started painting the poppy on it with lasers and whatnot, and they did the same thing for the toonie. And supposedly I have a queen's toonie. Is it toonie? Yeah, it's a toonie for when she passed. I have it in my stuff.
Fair enough. And Stephanie's pointing out we have little shelters for shopping trolleys scattered around the car park of our supermarkets. Yeah, there's a lot of them in here in the U.S. Depending as to which company it is, depends as to what kind of shopping cart collection zone they've got. Some of them are covered. Most of the time they're not, because why bother? And also continues, all of the carts need a £1 coin, which you get back if you put the trolley where it should be. As it should be. Now, of course, if the UK finally decides to go with a euro, that means that they're going to have to all be retooled. But I mean, why would you guys ever do that? I mean, that would mean that you guys would be part of the mainland, and they don't want to do that.
I think if I find my old keychain, which I brought with me, I have actually a couple of tokens. You could buy tokens from different places, different stores, and one of them was the quarter size and one of them was the loony size. And I got really pissed off because one of the times I went shopping with my ex-roommate, he just handed our cart off to somebody instead of returning it and getting the token back. I looked at him and said, "You just cost me $2 because that was how much that token was." "Oh, sorry."
Yeah,
It meant I didn't have to have a loony or a toonie or a quarter on me. I had the token. I could stick it in and I could get it back. And
fair enough. So let's go ahead, get everything rolling, and we got stuff that we'll end up talking about. And Stephanie's also pointed out, remember, this is the UK where rain is somewhat likely. Remember, this is Buffalo, where it snows 14 months out of the year. And there are a number of places over here that don't use overhangs on the collection areas. There are some that do. There's a lot of them that don't, because why bother?
I'm actually going to be I'm going to be complaining to City Hall the next time I go in front of them and say, you've got this wonderful exercise area at this one park, but it can't be used during the summer months because it's black metal and black plastic and sun. There is
Oh,
no shade. Yeah, I sat on it and
yeah,
I hopped off real quick. This was a couple years ago, but still, I hopped off real quick.
yeah, that's a second-degree burn happening really quick, and that's not good.
Hmm.
So
Anyway, do your rant.
I think I will do that because it's one of the things I'm really good at. So with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle is going to start right now. Conflation. No, that's not another furry fetish that you want to go looking up for. Trust me, you really don't want to be going looking for that. Conflation is the idea of saying something is almost the same as something else. And this happens way too often, and we've seen it happen in a lot of different areas. One of the things, of course, being in politics, saying that one political organization is the same as a different political organization. They're effectively the same thing. They're all, name whatever the thing is, corrupt is usually the one that comes up. And, well, is there corruption in politics? Well, yes. And it would be foolish for me to say otherwise, because where there is power, there is corruption. Not because one necessarily grabs onto the other, but because it is a easier pathway. Now, some people go ahead and they will remind you and they will argue that only the corrupt get into politics. Well, that's not exactly true. It's not true at all. Not of everyone. Are there people that do that? Absolutely. But then again, there are also people who are corrupt who get into janitorial services just so that they can get a little something or other, or maybe playing the semi-long game so that they can make mustard gas in an area where they've got beef. No, I'm not making stuff like that up. There have been situations where that's exactly the kind of thing that's happened. Going back to the furries, you might remember a couple of years ago at one of the conventions, somebody set off a chlorine gas bomb. Calling it a bomb might be a little hyperbolic, but be that as it may, it caused problems. So conflation, the idea of saying that something is the same as something else. And of course, there are so many times when people do this in the heat of the moment, and the two things that they're trying to say are the same or similar or analogous to each other. It just doesn't work. And a lot of times this ends up coming up into the question of theology. Now, here on the atheist side, the question of is there a God is nice and simple. Don't think so. So, yeah, I don't think so. Versus the people that say, well, yeah, of course. And then there will be some who will go ahead and they will say that the two sides are very similar to each other because there are corruption on both of them. That atheists are bad, mean-spirited people who just want to kill babies versus people who have been advocating for slavery and using their Bible to advocate for it. First off, the two have got nothing whatsoever to do with each other. They don't mesh. They don't have anything that reflects one to the other. But you want to go ahead and you want to make flawed comparisons that way. You know what? Okay. You want to go ahead, you want to do that, fine. Explain to me how. How are they the same thing? You know, it's one of those things where it's so easy for someone to just make an assumption and then put it out there and use it as an argument to bolster whatever point it is that they're trying to make. Okay, show me how you're right. Connect the dots for me. Set up these dominoes so that I can understand how you got from this point to the final end stage on both sides that bring them together into the same point. Because I don't see how you got there. Now, the problem with doing that is, of course, that, you know, usually, not all the time, but usually, somebody who does this kind of thing in the heat of the moment, they just decided to put these 2 points together in their own head, and, well, then you just being a meanie pants because you're asking for them to demonstrate how they're right. Yeah. Because that's how you make an argument. That's how you prove your point. That's how you bring me to your side of the argument. If you don't want me on your side of the argument, fine. You want to bitch and complain about something, be honest about that. But if you want to go ahead and try to make a point, make the point. And if your point is maybe you don't have one, maybe that's a little bit more telling on where you're trying to argue from instead of where you're actually trying to argue to. Maybe it's worth a little self-reflection on that. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and do the horrible scopes, because now's about a good time as any to go ahead and do the horrible scopes. So for those of you that know what your astrological sign is, cool. Those of you that don't, you can just spin the wheel and pick one. Rock, paper, scissors. I don't know, Russian roulette with a semi-automatic. I don't recommend that one most of the time. That's probably a really bad idea. Or if you want to get one of those cool little D12s with the squiggles on it and just kind of randomize it that way, you can get in touch with the nice folks over there at Heart of the Game Fredonia, and they can see about selling you one, or a couple of them, or you could just visit the store. But if you can't visit the store and you want to, order from them, get in touch with them over there on Facebook, Heart of the Game Fredonia. You will need a U.S. address to get it shipped to, but that's just kind of the way that it is. Remember, go visit them. They're the store with the mimic. They're supposed to have a mimic. Look for the mimic in the window. That's how you know that it's safe. It's Hail, Hail Fredonia, home of the Blue Devil. I've gotten that picture, and he's Chad Devil, man. He's got the chin and everything. You should really look at that picture. I need to put that picture in the picture repository, come to think of it. So, being that we are firmly into October when this goes to press for everybody else, that means that there is a lot going on, and some things you probably might not necessarily be aware of. And since we're getting closer and closer to spooky season, let's help you plan out your holiday events and maybe a costume theme. So, take a visit to both Spirit Halloween and your local grocery store, because there's things afoot and you want to spend your money, and well, you might as well get used to spending money because it's coming up on holiday season shopping anyway. That last part kind of got away from me. There's reasons that Io knows full well.
What?
Aries, first off, you'll want to have a get-together with Cancer a little bit later, and their planned out costume, so listen carefully. As much as you adore pumpkin spice, quote-unquote, it's nothing special. You just combined ground cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, cloves, and allspice, and you can have your specialty latte any time of the year. Hell, make some of it, put it into a little portable dispenser, and add it to your store-bought coffee just to shake things up. Doesn't matter when it is. So this week, just get a cafe latte for $1 less and add your own dusting to it. Or better yet, just make your own coffee at home for a change.
Taurus, you knew it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and you've seen Save the Tatas bumper stickers. But that sentiment is reductionist at best. Do you have breasts? Well, congratulations! You need to be aware of the possibility in yourself. Yes, even you guys. Just because you don't have moves doesn't mean you can't develop breast cancer. So this week, forego whatever it is you do in the shower that takes so long and inspect your chest carefully once in a while, as well as your other anatomy. Remember, the breasts you might save might just be your own. I mentioned the other anatomy because I know a 30-year testicular cancer survivor.
Perfectly
If one is
reasonable.
if one is bigger than it should be, get checked.
Gemini, we're sending this one out to a special person, but it's not playing favorites this time. That comes later. There is an autumn celebration of peace observed within some Native American families called Nano Mano. Try again. Nano Mane Stotse. I actually did practice it a couple of times. It's just the back and forth is really tough on me. Which means
And you were giving me hell because I screwed up yesterday.
I was giving you hell because you didn't try to use the pronunciation guide.
Actually, I did use the pronunciation guide, and I just no.
Fair enough. It is a word which means peace in the Cheyenne language. It's a beautiful time for it, too. The coldness is arriving in the evenings and mornings. The wildlife is more active during these times. And you could just sit out there with some corn and maybe feed some of them. So this week, set up a camera to take pictures every few seconds, and after a day, make a movie of all the images. Just watch the day go by and enjoy what the world shows you. I am actually thinking about doing that, by the way. Now that I've got a laptop that I can work with, I'm going to hook it up to my digital SLR, and have it take pictures like every 5 seconds or so at the sky. And I want to make a, not exactly a flip book, but like just a movie for myself to see what the sky looks like through, however long the battery lasts on the camera.
A Cancer Moonchild, like we said before, you're needing to coordinate your time with Aries for this one because we're suggesting your Halloween costume. It'll take a little work on your part, but we think we can make a great version of a Care Bear, specifically Mr. Coffee Bear. Imagine it. With a little help, you can make a brewing system wrapped around your body, hidden under the fluffy costume, and dispensing coffee from a spigot in your belly button. Your belly button. So this week, if you need creamer and sugar, you can carry a Care Bear's lunchbox and stuff it with packets of each. You're going to be hit with the 20s and 50s. You're going to be a hit with the 20s and 50s crowd. Belly button. Belly button. No kinky stuff.
There's a furry meme that's gone around fairly recently about coffee shops, and you know what? I didn't even think about that one. I should stop thinking about that one. Leo, you'll need this Halloween costume, but you'll likely need to build it yourself. You've seen the inflatable ones where you look like you're riding a T-Rex, but it's your legs are out the bottom, impersonating whatever you're riding on, and they're doll legs in a saddle that are supposed to be what your real legs are, but they're not. Well, try this one on for size. The T-Rex is purple, and you wear a blonde wig, a saber-toothed tiger pelt over your shoulders as your only clothing, and you keep looking for your friend Fred. So this week, that's right, you're Barney Rubble riding Barney the dinosaur. They'll love you, you'll love them. They will hate you such, my friend. They will hit you in the head with a 2x4. I can't sing this anymore.
I hate you, you hate me. Let's all go and kill Barney with a great big gun. Virgo, your birthday's already come and gone, but there's still another one coming up. Yes, it's confusing, but this is half of the special treatment and playing favorites listings this week. So this week, you didn't get enough gifts for your birthday, so host a get together with your friends and make a good dinner for everyone. Why? Because you already have the greatest gift of all. No, not friends. People who trust you enough not to poison them with your cooking. What are you, new here?
Libra, most of you won't get this, but happy 3rd birthday. You're kind of Virgo Libra. Just because it's only a birthday convenience doesn't mean it's not worth celebrating. And yes, this one is totally an abuse of power on our part, but hey, what's the point of having power if you don't abuse it once in a while? So this week, seriously, just happy birthday. I couldn't be happier to wish it to you, even long distance like this. Celebrate with a 6-pack of cannoli.
Scorpio, sorry, but you're getting a secondhand horrible scope topic. Doesn't mean it's not super cool though. You're going to need to do some serious investigative work to combine food prep and Dia de los Muertos and make consumable sugar skulls to give out for Halloween. Yeah, giving out handmade food to strangers isn't a great idea, but how cool would it be to a kid get an egg-sized skull to bite into and some kind of bull caramel drips out? So this week, we're not sure where you should start looking for how to make such a thing, but we can safely say building them with your Dremel drill is a bad idea. Yeah.
I think it'd be really cool to see, though. That would be really
Oh,
cool.
I live in the middle of Sugar Skull Central. I go out my back gate and all of a sudden there's sugar skulls all along the street. Every single Latino family is sugar skull, sugar skull. It's wonderful. The church that's right there too. It beautiful, beautiful displays.
As an aside, by the way, if you've not seen the movie Coco or The Book of Life, make that a consideration for this month. They are both worthy.
Coco is a wonderful movie.
Yes, it is. Sagittarius, just because you're older doesn't mean you can't dress up as one of your favorite and inspirational characters. How many versions of Princess Leia can you name? Because we're betting that you're not going to come up with the best version for your costume, and I'm pretty sure that Io agrees on this one. So this week, the best version is the princess who absolutely roasted George Lucas for telling her that there was no underwear in outer space. Get that middle finger prepped for use, drink your water, take your medicine, get your sleep, and make sure Space Mom would be proud of you.
Space Mom.
Best mom. Well, second best mom.
I actually have the picture of her as like a sainted yeah, iconography, and I want to get a printed version of it because it's just perfect
Carrie was good people.
with her flying finger and her pup.
Hell yeah.
Capricorn, since it's National Adopt a Shelter Dog Month, let's tell you about someone who didn't want to keep a puppy. Poor guy brought it back to the shelter for chewing on everything, and the lady at the desk just laid into him loudly, berating him for wanting to ditch this poor innocent baby for acting like a baby. And the best part? The best part? The vet who came out front to see what the commotion was about just stood in the doorway, waiting for a break. Then, when there was one, just turns around and left saying, "Oh, she's not done with you yet." And she wasn't. So this week, you do not adopt a puppy and run out on it. Puppies are people too. Maybe consider adopting an older good boy so they have a good rest of their life. If there's no heaven, then they deserve to have one before they leave us, and you can provide it.
As I stated last time, when the scopes actually premiered, that's a real story. That's a real story.
Yeah.
Aquarius, happy Thanksgiving Day. And since you got that one, it means you're up Canada way. And what a great chance to get family back together for you for turkey and lasagna and pie and wine. Don't worry how long you need to keep the bird in the oven for when you've got a deep fryer. Yeah, that's right. In under an hour, you can have the holy grail of turkey treats. So this week, make sure your propane tank is mostly full and has no cracks in it. And buy a spare fire extinguisher.
And don't put it in ice cold.
No.
Do not put it in ice cold.
No. As somebody who's done turkey deep fried a couple of times, the first time out, you can expect that you will make a flaming mix. No lie. I'm fortunately I didn't make a flaming mess. I did it outside on, just dirt. So the oil spilled into the ground. No big thing. I mean, it was peanut oil. Doesn't matter. But when I say that deep fried turkey is the holy grail, if you prep your turkey correctly and you cook it correctly, it is the freaking holy grail. Oh my God, it is so good.
Now I'm hungry.
Join the club.
You're mean.
Yeah, and? What, are you new here?
Yes.
Fair.
Yeah. There's several videos on YouTube where you can actually watch people do the bad thing of putting a frozen turkey into a deep fryer.
Yeah, bad things
It's not
happen.
good. It is not good. It is not good.
Yeah. The
Pisces.
You know what?
Mhm.
Remind me after we get done with this one that I need to find the video of Alton Brown and his turkey fryer because he set up a thing to show how to do it right and safe, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, you mentioned Alton Brown. He is like my my mentor when it comes to cooking because he doesn't just, oh, you put these ingredients together, you get this. No, you put these ingredients together, and if you experiment and do this and this and this and this and this, and he does the science and the history behind the cooking and why people put certain foods together.
Alton Brown
And
is the mad scientist, but for good.
because of him, I was able to make my first ever popovers properly, do the full pop, but I still can't figure out how to get them to stay popped. They come out of the oven, they go Pisces. Your Halloween costume is one people said could never be done, but we believe in your skills in costuming and programming tech. You're going to be the one and only Batman Beyond. Look, not just anyone can be Bruce Wayne's Batman. You have to you need to have a special chin to make it work because you're Batman. I'm Batman. But pull on a full body blackout suit and make sure no one needs to know what your chin looks like. So this week, make sure all your electronics have properly installed double fuses to keep yourself safe, or else I'm Batman.
Yeah, when there were a couple of the Batman movies, my wife had said, you know, you if you want to be Batman live action, the you have to have the right chin because if you don't have a powerful chin, you it doesn't work. It just doesn't
I'm
work.
Batman.
So yeah, Val Kilmer as Batman. Look at the chin. It doesn't work. Those are your hoboscopes for this week. Remember, if you like what you got, I don't care because you don't matter to me because you're recycled pixels on my screen, most of you. But of course, if you'd like to ask for something nicer or naughtier for your own sign or someone else's, you can bribe me because I operate a lot on vanity. Or if you want to literally bribe me, you can. Over at the coffee page, coffee.com/Icarus the Lunar Guard. I'll have these posted online at the end of the week as always. Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Blue Sky. And I would otherwise rent a plane to fly them overhead, but it's not as cheap as you might think. And considering that I tend to use the OU instead of just O when I write stuff out, it costs more. So not gonna I'm not gonna do that. That's just a little bit more annoying. Sorry. This is episode 511 on the docket, Your Honor. Just look around you. Yeah, some of us, as mentioned earlier, some of us have heard the oft used theistic argument that proves to you that there's a God out there by just look at the trees, just look around, just look at the trees. No. First off, that argument isn't an argument. It's what you'd expect somebody who's high on shrooms to say, amongst other things. Trying to use that as an argument for anything doesn't work worth a damn. But as a mention that people just need to look past the trees into the forest to realize that they are in a cult, it starts to become a little bit more readily apparent if you suddenly start looking deeper into the woods, into the forest. But then you get told that you're not allowed to do that. But if you do, you then get told that's not what you saw. But if you insist, then you get told, well, you shut up and you cut it out or you get kicked out. And then you get kicked out. because the human nature is to learn more, because we're inquisitive. Some might call it nosy. I don't care. Whatever it is, the human condition is to always want to know what's behind the next rise. And then you do get kicked out. And even from the inside of this collective group, you see that there are people who get kicked out. And you get to find out why. And the fact that it doesn't get more people kicked out because more people don't want to find out is concerning to, people like me. So why do these crucibles keep happening? Why does this insular evolutionary backup keep sustaining itself when by all rights there is nothing about it that makes any kind of sense that it continues to stay where it is? So I don't know how much we're going to be able to get out of this, but then again, I also just thought to myself, wow, the various religions have existed for a long, long, long time with exactly this kind of thing, which is really kind of weird. So I'm going to mention, first and foremost, because it's the one that comes to mind the easiest, the Jehovah's Witnesses. Past co-host from the show, Witchy Bunny, was part of the J-Dubs. And she was... I grew up Roman Catholic. I have subsequently gotten better. I grew up Roman Catholic, so for me the term was excommunication. If you were kicked out of the church, it was for Roman Catholics. It tends to be much more you're not allowed to be in the church anymore, as opposed to a completely isolated from the rest of the community. There might be more areas where it's a lot more rigorous, but generally speaking, that's the way I understood it. For the J-Dubs, if you are disfellowed, you go through disfellowship, is what it's called, you are not just kicked out of the church, you're kicked out of the community. And it's more than just the strict interpretation of the word, if you pardon the scare quotes, heretic woman, thank you so much for the scare quote version. The community also includes your family, which means your parents, your siblings, your extended family. If they're part of the J-Dubs and you're disfellowed, you are supposed to be persona non grata, which has nothing to do with potatoes and cheese. You don't exist anymore, or you're not supposed to. Actively no longer a person that's supposed to be interacted with. Now, fortunately, in Witchy's case, her family did not completely cut her off. They kind of did it on the sly and kind of kept with her, sort of, not kind of, sort of. It was kind of one of these weird things. But the idea that you could have this happen is absolutely insane to me. And the fact that people keep having it happen and groups just continue to stay with them after finding out, hey, what happened to such and such and so and so? I mean, I don't want to be connected with them again, but they seem to be okay once upon a time. Are they okay? No. Oh. And it tends to come down to, well, then they shouldn't have done what they did. I'm going to use my discretion on this one just to put it out there. How the fuck do these groups continue to operate when the people know this happens and there is a non-zero probability that these people who are kicked out will end up no longer being functional biological creatures in short order because of stress and depression and being cut off from every lifeline that they otherwise had.
That's exactly why they shun them. Because all of a sudden the person no longer has family, no longer has the church and the religious circle that they had. They're shunned from it completely, and they can't do any of the things that they used to do for comfort. And so they have to find absolution, and they have to say, I'm sorry. And oh, I went through this in a way. Um, I'm technically a covenant breaker with the Baha'is. I signed my card when I was 15. I was a declared Baha'i. But I didn't sign my card willingly. My mother was standing over my shoulder when I was 15, demanding I sign it right then and there or else. Because I had spent a year saying that I was going to sign it on my 15th birthday and I was going to declare myself a Baha'i. But at 14 and a half, I don't like this religion. I've got too many questions, and instead of answering my questions, the elders and the teachers and the new counselors, which are what the hand of the cause used to be, but they can no longer assign hand of the causes, so now it's counselors. All these people can't tell me what I need to know for the answers. Oh, just read the law books and the hidden words and all this, and you'll figure it out on your own. But I want to be pointed to where I need to find. Nope. Da, 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 da. I stood up in Sunday school class one day and said, yeah, I'm going to be one of the first women to serve on the Universal House of Justice. And I got laughed at by my male teacher. Women don't serve on the Universal House of Justice because they are required to stay in the home and take care of the children because that is their job. We're supposed to have higher educated women so that the children become higher educated. Oh, so you're going to have ill-educated men in the Universal House of Justice? Well, the men are supposed to be educated too, but if you're supposed to educate the women first, oh, it got into a big argument, and that's when my faith breaking started. If I could not be part of the Universal House of Justice, why was I a Baha'i? Why was I a Baha'i youth and a Baha'i child? And what really got me is the very next feast. People were told that I signed my card. And yes, it was signed under duress because my mother was there bouncing up and down, demanding that I sign. The very next feast, nobody really acknowledged it. Yet an adult woman signed about a couple months later, and it was an immediate party. I was looking around going, what the hell? I've been a member of this community for years. I sign and I don't get any acknowledgement? Are you doing this to other children of Baha'i parents? And I actually brought that up to the LSA, and they said, you're right. We did make a mistake. We should have acknowledged you. But by then it was too little too late. And other things that were making me go, huh? You know, what is it? It's not evolution and it's not creationism. It's right in the middle. That's what Baha'is believe in, that man was always man, but just not always in the form of man. Yeah.
Oh, I forgotten off the top of my head what it is.
Yeah.
I know what you're describing. Yeah.
I had to debate in class, in English class, grade 10. It was one of the last things I did that year. Evolution versus creationism. And I got assigned creationism. And I said, that's not what I believe in. Well, do what you believe in. So I did the Baha'i thing. And the teacher failed me for that debate. You were supposed to do creationism. It's like, but that's not what I believe in.
Okay.
I was I was set up to fail, but you
Oh,
know,
okay. Now, this the wait. What level of education was this that's happened in?
grade 10,
Okay.
maybe 11, grade 10. I'm pretty sure. No,
Okay.
yeah, it was
So
grade 11. Sorry.
high school level. High school
Hmm.
level. Okay. I can understand failing a student, hold on, for not following through on an assignment as assigned, but what the what the assignment was unfair because it's a subjective and not an objective
Mm,
assignment. Because of that, if this had been a higher thing, very specifically, if it had been last year of high school, early college, university, I could see very intentionally saying, I'm going to be giving you a thing that's going to require research that you don't necessarily believe in, that you probably don't, but you need to be able to go through, find the research, find the argument that makes the case that I'm giving to you, specifically because it's going to require you to do the research in order to find the argument that proves the case, whether you believe it or not. I can understand that. But if it's an earlier set of we're doing debates, yeah, it very easily should be going to your wheelhouse and go ahead and do your debate on what you already know about, because it's it gets you primed into knowing how to go into a debate. And then
I hated
afterwards, yeah, oh,
I
I
hated
don't.
doing debates in school. I really did. One of the debates I got was whether women or men were the more dangerous animal. And I lost, saying that men were the more dangerous animal because I didn't have proper receipts for the men that I was had picked.
Oh, dear darling, if only you had been looking at the, no, no, I'm not going down that road right
I
now.
used Clifford Olson, Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Green River Killer at the time, and apparently that wasn't enough. Anyway, um, guided evolution. There's a different term, and a lot of the Christian fundamentalists do it and use it. It's supposed to mean that the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. And then there's the creationists that believe that God put those fossils there because he wanted to fuck with scientists.
Yeah, and fuck that noise.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that means that the god that created the earth is effectively Loki. Yeah, no. No, that
I,
means that your god can lie.
I kind of like the idea of God as Loki, but the storyteller, the person that weaves the stories together and keeps things going, Loki, not the one that does all of the craziness, Loki.
You mean not the
Demo-
Loki that gives birth to a six-legged horse?
we're not going there.
Oh, I don't know. I find that absolutely adorable.
I find it funny. I find it's amusing. I find myths and legends to be ways of telling what happened by people who had no way of understanding what happened.
Spider horse, does nothing that a spider can do. I just, I, okay, I was about to say, how do you come up with a name like Slifner, which requires you to pronounce a consonant through your nose, but then again, they also ended up naming Thor's hammer Mjolnir, which doesn't in any way have the letter J in it, and yet you're supposed to just kind of slide through that. I don't understand their language at all.
It's a language.
Arguably, but right now we don't have Dallin here to go ahead and give a shit about it. So, okay.
Poor Dallin.
Son of
He's
a.
suffering with prime rib.
No, that was yesterday. That was yesterday.
He's suffering the after effects of prime rib.
That would be today.
Anyway,
That'd be
part of
today.
the things about Baha'i that really got me and really had me going, huh? Was that children, teenagers were not supposed to have premarital sex.
Yeah, about
And
that.
but we could sleep in the same bed together. We just had to have the specific holy book open to these specific pages between us. But we could sleep in the same bed together. And then there was the entire thing about how being a homosexual was a mental illness. That's now changed to it's okay. Their doctrine actually says that their doctrine can change as the science is proven, because science and religion should not be two separate things. They should be in. Uh, we're
Okay.
talking about stuff that I learned back when I was a teenager.
No, that's okay. All right. So let's go ahead and kind of zone in on that for just a second. If your religion is allowed to change according to the evolving scientific consensus of the universe, I'm leading on something here. Just a second. What does that mean if your holy texts, theoretically for most of them, inspired or directly dictated by the Almighty, is suddenly found to be in diametric opposition to the scientific consensus of how the universe operates? If you're a kid and you're told thunder is just the angels playing um, bowling in the sky. Okay, it helps you to no longer be quite as afraid because it's no longer an unknown. It's a known. Oh, okay, that's what that is. Okay, you can assign a cause and effect. As a kid, you have no way of knowing, and you find out later. No, that's not how that operates. It's actually scientific explanation here. And I'm doing that not because I don't know. I do understand about the concept of sliding one polarized molecule against another polarized molecule and trading electrons until they get to a certain amount of voltage that overcompensates for the dielectric constant of the air between them. I know how all that shit works, all right? I was trying to get around it. I understand how this works. I learned ham radio stuff. I know about this shit. But then if you have that knowledge, but it was something that was taught to you as the reality of the world, why continue to think that you've got all the answers to the universe? Now, I know this is not exactly a one-to-one with, like, for instance, the Bible or the Torah against reality. I mean, if we wanted to do something like that, we would talk about how, breeding sheep behind a slatted fence in order to get them to have wool that's striped with the next generation. You can't really do that in reality, although it's written there in the texts. So why would you believe anything else? Because obviously biology and animal husbandry is definitely, and genetics is definitely not something that you can trust it to. I mean,
Boom.
we're not going to get into the whole bats and birds thing either.
Well, it was just some research I was doing in about last 10 years. I read that the homosexuality was no longer considered a mental illness because science and medical was saying it was no longer a mental illness. And I just kind of went, "What? You changed your doctrine? What else did you do?" I remember being taught in Sunday school. Yeah, we had Sunday school. We rented a high school, and children from about 5 different communities went to this Sunday school. And it was interesting because one of the times I asked, what if you want to leave the Baha'i faith? Because they have this thing about the individual person's search for the truth. What if the truth takes them away from the Baha'i faith? Well, then the person is mentally ill. What? The
Yeah.
person is mentally ill and should be shunned by the community. When they find Baha'u'llah again, then they can come back and we will welcome them back. But it's quite obvious that they are mentally ill. And I just kind of went, okay.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering if the change in the idea of homosexuality being no longer being a mental illness, if that coincides with the time that the DSM, the
It does.
coincides. DSM stands for the, oh God, I forgot what the hell it is.
Diagnosis and Statistician's Manual.
Yeah,
It's for mental illness, and instead of mental illness being quantified and codified, it's more of a flow chart. And you start going through all the things that the person is acting like or has been doing or saying or whatever. And oh,
yeah, there it is. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The most recent of which is as of March of 22. So it's basically 2.5 years out since it's been last updated, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That it's been, a couple of years. It is a voluminous tome, and it's been updated, it's been edited, it's a collection. It is typically a printed collection, and it is a big, heavy book.
a big, hateful, heavy book because there's nothing in it that really pushes the psychiatry and psychology departments to look at, is there a physical reason why this person is having issues? Or is there a trauma reason why this person is having issues? It's looking at the person right there, right now, and they're making snap judgments. And there have been multiple studies where people have gone into psychiatric institutions where they played the part of the patient who was ill just to see how they were going to be treated for studies. And it's just,
Yeah,
the inmates are running the asylum.
yeah, and fun enough, just the opposite. There are physical diagnostic information that, in a lot of situations, just does not take into account the possibility of mental disorders. And it's a tough thing because, I mean, let's face it, the physical body, it is a physical biological machine, which means there is as much nuance as there are people, because every one of them is, well, it is unique. There are a lot of things that are, the same with it, but, they're unique. But as far as mental stuff is concerned, the brain, building a mind, is it is something that we are still trying to find even the right terminology for some of the stuff that's in it. I mean, we got a lot of things that, we understand. We understand what the different regions of the brains are and what they do, how they, generally speaking, operate, how you can do things to the brain to change the mind. Some not for the best over the hundreds of years that we've been finding out about this stuff. I'm thinking about things like, oh, I don't know, recreational chemicals and how they change how the mind operates. Or the brain operates
Poverty,
the mind.
poverty, and how it changes a child's brain, or for that matter, a teenager or young adult, or any person's age. I have been quoted at saying that if you were not mentally ill when you first have to deal with welfare, after about 6 months to a year, you are mentally ill because of all of the hoops that you have to hop through. If you manage to keep some sort of sanity, it's a miracle. And the longer you're on it, the greater the chance of you becoming mentally ill.
Yeah, Stephanie has also pointed out there was an even better one where a university sent people to check out the institution, find out if they were sane. The institution failed on that part. I remember about that one. I saw a video short on that one where five university level students went in complaining, making complaints that were supposed to be simulating something. They were diagnosed with whatever it was. I don't remember the exact specifics, so I'm kind of giving the overhead view. And then they were institutionalized, and then they did not make any further complaints about whatever it was that they were complaining about originally, and they were still subsequently kept in for a while. And then when they got out, the university or whatever said, "Yeah, this is what happened. We sent in 5 students to check on you guys, and you completely failed." Well, all right, we will send another 5 or 8 or whatever it was in the near future, and we will check in with you. And a couple of weeks later, the institution came back and said, "Well, we found your people, and this is what they said, and this is what we were able to track them out at." And the university researchers, whatever, basically said, "Cool story, bro. We didn't send anybody yet." So, yeah, the ability of trying to diagnose stuff, brain related, brain operation related, because mind, um,
It's
it's
it's not
tough.
it's subjective. It's not, you can't take a blood test with a mental illness and say, okay, this person has this, and this mental illness.
Usually,
You
now
you keep
to be
there's stuff that, yeah, you can find, like lead poisoning and other chemical poisonings, heavy metal poisonings.
yeah, there are occasionally indications for chemicals in the bloodstream that would be indicative of mental stuff happening, brain stuff, or vice versa, the body doing stuff that's affecting the way that the brain operates. Yes, going on, however,
It's still,
yeah, you can't exactly do a blood test for a lot of stuff that
somebody
are
with
mental.
somebody with diabetes, chances are they have depression, anxiety, eating disorders, other mental health disorders, stress related disorders. Well, considering if they eat wrong, they could end up dead. Yeah, they've got a fair bit of weight on their shoulders. Add in abuse and jokes from people that think diabetes is a joke, or make diabetes jokes about eating too many cakes, or there goes my diabetes, or whatever. It does weigh down on a person. Um, Having too much stress, having this, having that. What really drives me absolutely batty is that anxiety is a symptom of heart attacks in women, and it's dismissed as that, yeah, that. But you know, I was off one of my blood medicines for about 5 days, and by the second day, my anxiety level had hit the roof. I could feel the difference in my blood volume. I could feel the difference in what was going on. And If I had been cornered by the men in the white coats with the blue gloves, they probably would have put me into a psych ward because of how bad I was. It was really bad. Oh. But I managed to suffer through it. And within 10 minutes of the tests being done, I was able to get half dose of my med into me. We decided to do 2 half doses the first day and then a full dose the next day because I had been off of it for too long and well, my anxiety might have actually had a point. One of my tests came back and it has me labeled as a high risk for having a stroke if I don't keep on this medicine. So something I was reading something in my body and the feedback loop was initiated. And I survived. But last year when I had my pneumonia and I was in the hospital for 3 days, one of the things that they asked me, "Are you anxious?" And I turned around and said to the person who asked me that, "Anxiety is a symptom of a heart attack in women." And I was dismissed. They wrote down that I was feeling anxious. No, I was not feeling anxious. I was correcting them. Anxiety is a symptom of a heart attack in women. Ah,
Yeah.
and the worst part is women can feel the anxiety for weeks and months. They can feel that something is wrong and they keep on going back to the doctor, and the doctor keeps on going, there. The ER keeps on going, there. I did that back in 2020, and that's when I had my first atrial fibrillation event. And the only reason why the hospital believed me was because I came in via ambulance doing over 190. Yeah, it took that for them to believe me.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm actually looking up a piece of information because I thought to myself really quickly through this that we have so many, and I promise we're gonna get back onto the main topic again. I mean, this is how the show goes, man. There are rabbit holes all over the place. You just fall into one once in a while. That trying to help diagnose stuff with mental items. A lot of it has to do with trying to understand what's happening with the brain and trying to understand, trying to diagnose the brain, meaning the physical piece, the brain, as opposed to the mind, which is what brain does. Sometimes you can get away with using something just as relatively simple, and I say relatively simple because I don't understand how it all works. An X-ray, which doesn't exactly give you a great view by comparison. I went looking up information about um, the MRI, magnetic resonance imaging systems, CT, which translates to what is it? Computerized tomography scan. I forgot what those terms were, as well as the PET scan, which is the positron emission tomography. Do we need to know what those all mean? No. What I can tell you, however, is that um, MRIs were first created in the early 1970s. And what drives me batty is that the article on Wikipedia, and yes, I will make sure that I add them all in here, in 1971 at Stony Brook University, applied magnetic field gradients in all three dimensions. Stony Brook is on Long Island. I have a history with that location. Not going to I'm not going to describe what the relationship I had with them was. That's a piece of my piece of my past that we don't need to go into right now. The other one for CT system was done at. Wait a minute, am I looking at the wrong one? Or was it PET scanning? I think the CT scan? was originally done at Brookhaven. One of them was. Brookhaven also on Long Island, very close to each other. Brookhaven National Labs, once upon a time ago, used to have an atomic collider. Not one of the biggest ones by any stretch, but they had their own, which has since been shut down. Brookhaven National Labs was also the place where what we now know of as Pong, the video game Pong, was first created. And memory serves, they were also the first ones to accidentally create the system whereby we now have microwave ovens. So, scientific progression isn't always aha. Scientific progression sometimes is just, well, that's weird. So for them, it really was over there. So the idea of how to look inside of a brain, and I use the term look loosely, to see what it looks like, what it's doing, but viewing it in a way that is non-destructive, but also gives us a view into how it's operating, is something that's very, very recent. I mean, come on, it's only just inside of my lifetime for some of this technology. So, 50, 55 years, maybe 60 in some case for some of this stuff. That's a relatively short amount of time for a diagnostic tool this complex for a piece of anatomy that is as complex as it comes right now. So, yeah.
I found an abstract about the clinical use of, I believe, CT and MRI. It might just be CT scans for mental health. Now, the problem is it a learned behavior, or is there actually something wrong with the brain or with some other part of the body? Because it could be another organ that's causing problems, another organ that shoots out hormones or enzymes or whatever, and it's causing a problem. And the cascade effect is that the person has a mental illness. Their mental health has deteriorated because of it. Um, you end up in a car accident. You're fine, but you're hurting. All your muscles are hurting and swelling. Your back is wrenched, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to take you months in order to get back on your feet. You will go through depression. You will go through the darkest pit of hell. And that's if you can actually get through it and actually heal enough and to be back up to 100%. You'll probably never will be at 100%, but the change in your life, that's also a mental illness because of the effect of that injury. You get diagnosed with a chronic disease, asthma, allergies, um, lupus, any sorts of autoimmune disorders. Diabetes is one of them too, or cancer. All of a sudden, your mental health goes because you also have to deal with it. People talk about the spoon theory. That's the mental energy in order to do your day-to-day tasks. I prefer to use the the match theory. You get a matchbook or a matchbox every single day, and that's how much mental energy that you have in order to do the things that you need to do. Now, the problem is if you light that match wrong, the entire thing could go up in your hands and you have nothing until tomorrow. And when my ankle, my fibia got smacked and hairline fracture, there was like about 4 or 5 days there where I kind of looked at my other half and said, I can't even sit up anymore. I'm just going to go lie down. And because I was using all of my matches and just to be able to sit up and stare at my screen. You remember my whiny voice the first 2 Fridays?
Yep, and
I
I know the kind of thing that you're talking about. When I hurt my back, and it was so much pain to just get up out of bed because I wanted to get to the bathroom, to get out of bed and to even to get to the end, to get to the foot of the bed and to end up being in such pain I was sweating and only just barely get back into bed by shuffling. And that was such a physical effort, but the mental toll because of it all. Oh, absolutely. I understand very, very well just how bad the mental toll after physical trauma is and can be.
And if you have a physical or some sort of illness, some sort of something that's chronic, and I'm not talking alcoholism, I'm not talking about something from smoking, unless you're a secondhand smoker and therefore it wasn't your fault. It was probably your parents. If you've got that chronic illness, you know, you can't explain to people that don't have these problems why you just would rather stay home and read a book.
Now, the reason why I was okay with going down this rabbit hole is for exactly the reason, I mentioned before. When you've got your holy texts, doesn't matter what it's called or where it comes from, theoretically it is supposed to be the backbone of the belief system that you're involved in. And if scientific discovery finds out that not only is there stuff out there that's not even breathed about in these texts, and they've been around for a long time and gone over thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times and explained away. And then there's stuff that just says, yeah, no, it's absolutely, utterly wrong, and at this point laughable because of what we know about how the universe operates. What do you do? There are scientists we know full well who continue to be religious of some sort. And I don't exactly have a problem with that. I find it weird, personally, but there are reasons for remaining as part of a religious group. As we've talked with tech on many an occasion, it is entirely possible to remain part of the Jewish faith, but be secular about it and just be part of the Jewish community. Not that you necessarily go to temple and do all the things, but you do some of the celebrations because they're more referred to as historic. And again, I'm using the scare quotes for historic. Maybe they actually happened. Maybe they're a little bit more, just traditional because they're I don't want to necessarily say fun, because I mean, Hanukkah isn't exactly for the most fun of reasons, but it's turned into a fun community thing, family thing. For Muslims, there are other times. For instance, the celebration, and I'm not sure if that is quite the right word, but the observance, go with that. For Ramadan, you fast from sunup to sundown, and it's when I spoke with a buddy of mine that I used to work with who was Muslim, he explained it as that for him, it was an opportunity to give up something in order to appreciate what he has more. And I get that. I understand that. Roman Catholics, we have Lent, where you're supposed to give up something that you enjoy for the duration of, I forget exactly how long, a week. And, it's usually kind of laughably done. I gave up chocolate for a week. It's so hard because, I don't have an allowance, so it's not like I can go ahead and buy chocolate for myself anyway for that week, whatever. So, you can have community without necessarily having a complete observance. So, I get that. But so many of these scientists are just like, look, yeah, when I'm at home, I'm whatever faith. But when I come in the door to do the science, nah, man, the science is the science. My faith is my faith, and there is a door. And on one side of that door, I am part of that community. And when I'm on this side of the door, I'm part of this community. And I have rules that I have to follow. And if I'm inside these doors, it's all about the science and the math and what I can observe and what I can test. And that's it. Those are the people I can respect.
Okay, from what I've been reading from the Baha'i.us teachings on homosexuality,
Mhm.
it's not so much that homosexuality is or isn't a mental illness, it's more like a moral failing
Oh, that
because the
helps.
science that's the science they're tap dancing around whether or not homosexuality is allowed. Um Homosexual marriage probably wouldn't be. A civil union is again tap dancing around. Ugh. It was
Yeah, that's you're not married
ugh,
in our church, but we will recognize that the state says that you're married, but we don't recognize it. And there might be
yeah.
something wrong with you for wanting to do that, exactly that. Stephanie, by the way, correcting me, thank you. Lent is 30 days. It's been so long for me. I've absolutely, utterly forgotten. So thank you on that one.
The
Um,
Baha'is have the fast, which is in March, from the 2nd or 3rd till the 21st, which is Nowruz.
hmm.
They have their they have Ayamiha the last week of February, 5 or 6 days, depending on whether it's a leap year. And right after that is the fast. I hated the fast. My mother and I got into a screaming argument the first time I officially was supposed to do the fast. Mother, I'm hypoglycemic, which was a preview to becoming diabetic.
Ooh.
And I asked the doctor, and he said that I shouldn't fast. It doesn't matter. You have to fast. But I also have food allergies too. And your prophet says that Baha'u'llah says that I'm able to, and I've got my period, and I shouldn't be fasting when I have my period. Rah, rah, rah. Oh, it was a loud argument that if we had had a roof and weren't in an apartment building, the roof would have gone up.
And I wouldn't blame you one bit.
Medical necessity said that if you couldn't fast, you didn't have to fast. You could do another way for those 19 days. Um, I was a kid in high school and having to do sports and having to do other things. No, fasting as a teenager, bad idea. Fasting as an adult when you're not having to deal with people giving us issues like you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to run those 3 miles with the rest of the crew. Well, I haven't had breakfast. Doesn't matter. Go. That. Oh, women when they're pregnant, breastfeeding, or menstruating didn't have to fast.
And rightly so, as far as I'm concerned.
And again, if you had some sort of medical issue that would prevent you from fasting because it would cause more issues, you didn't have to fast. And my very first fast year, I had my period 3 days in. Oh, that was an argument.
Yeah, and all these years later, like I said, I'm on board with you. And it sounds like the way it's supposed to have been, you had the right. But and you know what? That actually slides well into this. Because there is the reasonableness of the observance versus slavish observance, and that's the problem of it all, isn't it? Just the whole I will do and you will do too, regardless of any extenuating circumstances.
Well, if you look at it from a certain point of view, observing kosher for the primitive Jewish cultures, prior to about 1500 AD, BCE, whatever, or Common Era.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's lock this down a little bit better because you're going from either side of quote unquote
I'm
zero.
I'm going from the 1500s back, so medieval Renaissance time backwards to when the Jewish religion was created. And it wasn't all of a sudden, bang, it's a religion. It developed and it changed over time. And the kosher rules, especially when it came to food, actually make sense. They had a primitive method of sterilization, pour boiling water all over the places that you prepare the food. Only eat certain types of food with certain other foods, and skip these foods with those foods because it would cause something to go wrong. Milk and meat, bad idea, because what if the meat was wrong or the milk was wrong? Yes, thank you, honey. You couldn't eat pork because of tapeworm and other diseases that pork had. And shrimp and other shellfish, you couldn't eat that because what if it had been a red tide and you didn't know it was a red tide?
Okay,
Uh,
before you move on from that, explain what that specifically means.
a red tide is when there's an overgrowth of a specific type of algae, and the bottom feeders, the clams, the mussels, the oysters, the shrimp, the prawn, the lobsters, all those, when they eat that, it's fine for them. But if a human was to eat one of those infected pieces of flesh, they could die.
Right.
And it's still in today's day and age. There was a couple times where I went shore fishing, just walking up and down the shore, picking up oysters, clams, and crab for my ex. And we had to not do it sometimes because there had been a red tide and we'd have to wait a month. So I don't know all the kosher rules. I'm trying to be respectful for them because my other half comes from a Jewish family. He's about two generations removed. He's very, very much an atheist. But his grandmothers were Jewish, and they cooked Jewish ways and they kept kosher and they did all this. And one of our best friends here was a very, very devout Jewish lady, but she didn't keep kosher. She liked her ham too much. But I had a discussion with her, and I've had a discussion with some rabbis as well, that the primitive Jews were using kosher rules, and it was not, like I said, they did not just come up with them all of a sudden out of the blue. Trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. They found out that doing this, and this was bad. Doing this, and this was good. People didn't get sick when they did this. And it was a primitive form of what's now called food safe. People go around and they go to restaurants and stuff and they check the temperatures on all the food to make sure that the food that is being served is actually safe for people to eat. That the people that have hygienic hands and hygienic gloves and hygienic pots and pans and everything. The primitive religion, and as it evolved and as it became solidified and codified and became kosher and it made sense and it kept their people safe and kept them healthy.
Yeah, which is exactly what you want to do in a society. No, I'm not going to do the whole memeified version of that because I don't truly understand it, but be that as it may. Yeah, I mean, those kinds of things, as you observe them over time, they make sense. In the moment, it makes less sense because, well, why are we doing that? Well, because we've always done it that way. All right, you know what? From a singular lifetime of observation, it can be what it can be. but as part of a cultured multi-generational time frame of observance and recording and putting together the statistics, yeah, it makes sense. And now it's less needed for safety and more wanted because it's cultural. The whole culture kosher thing. And I get it. Folks want to do that, that's fine. Because they choose to, as opposed to need to for ultimate survival.
And it made sense to me. It clicked in my head. Because I had taken food safe about 6 months earlier, and I had the discussion, and it clicked. What you do, how you keep your food, is to keep your people safe. It is food safe. You can follow kosher rules if you want. That's up to the individual. I think some of them are a little harsh and hard to actually follow properly, but if you're able to do it, go for it.
Harsh. You mean things like a plate that ends up having meat and dairy on it needs to be destroyed? Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I know about that one in particular because my father in law was a cook for the army and had to be knowledgeable about exactly that kind of thing and had to do that one time.
Oops.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely an oopsie moment. And I say oopsie because it actually was a mistake as opposed to a anything else.
Um, I don't really remember any of the Baha'i food laws. I remember my grandparents having their meatless Fridays. I think that's why I don't like spaghetti because it was on the meatless Friday.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a Catholic thing too.
my my mother's parents were Roman Catholic,
Yeah,
or at least my grandmother was. I'm not too sure about my grandfather. He probably just did it to keep her happy. Oh, recently, within the last 6 months or so, there was a TV show that actually showed what happens when somebody has faith and has their world shattered and just dives into their religious beliefs because that's the only way that they can cope. Mary Sheldon's mom on Young Sheldon. We see her on The Big Bang Theory being a religious nut, and we find out why she became a religious nut. She was always very religious, but when her husband died, instead of, I don't know, finding solace in her friends and family, she found solace in her prayers.
never
And
never really watched it, but I mean I can understand that.
my mother was like that when she was going through her trials and tribulations for having me as her daughter.
That helps.
She would run to her room and spend hours with her prayer book saying her prayers. And she actually started doing the 5 prayers a day that Baha'is are supposed to do. Yeah, Baha'is is Muslim light. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's okay.
You don't have to be veiled, but you do have to follow some other stuff. I don't think pork was a banned thing, or I don't remember. Anyway, she fell into her religious beliefs and she started saying her prayers and her prayers and her prayers. One of the prayers that I was taught to say when I was having trials and tribulations was the remover of difficulties, and saying it 99 times. It was supposed to fix whatever problem was. That sounds a lot like Wiccan spell casting.
Could be a lot of things.
Yeah. I asked one of our teachers, well, what if somebody has visions and prophecies? Should they go and train them? No, they should not be trained because those are gifts from God, and you should just be thankful that you have them. It's like, so I can't even be trained to stop them? Nope. Just be thankful you have them because they are gifts from God. Ah,
Yeah. And in some cases, how do you tell the difference between observational gifts of prophecy or of sight and vision versus things
hallucin-
like, uh,
hallucinations?
yeah, there is a Catholic saint for television. No joke, there really is. I forgot what her name is off the top of my head, but the reason why she was sainted as the saint for television is because when she was sick, she would look at the wall and she would see things.
Saint Clare of Assisi.
Oh, you found it already, did you? Good going. Yeah, hold on to that one because we're gonna put that one in. Now, what was she seeing? Were they visions from the Almighty? Maybe. I don't think that's real likely. Is
maybe,
it a hallucination, perhaps? Well,
maybe, maybe she could see her white blood cells in the back of her retinas, which is a really funky trick because I can do it. I can see them running around.
I don't know that
Oh,
that's the white blood cells, but
it's the it's the white blood cells. I found it one time. Somebody will probably track it down. Yeah, and as well as epilepsy is also another form of prophecies, as well as speaking in tongues.
yeah, which is what Stephanie just put.
Hmm. Yes, I know. I saw. Of
Well, I just want to make sure that we credit her.
course,
But
Steffi's awesome.
yeah,
Um,
it's wild, you know?
I know. I know a woman who had to go through a psychiatric court evaluation, and she said there was over 300 questions that she had to answer, multiple choice, and some of them were very religious in nature and just threw her for a loop. And the doc said, "Well, don't answer those ones if you don't want to." But I have to answer the truth. The end result was that the diagnosis that she was given by not even a social worker, but a counselor in training was wrong. And the court ordered psychologist said that this person was very stressed and did not have anything that she had been diagnosed with, but had perfectly good reasons to not trust social workers.
Yeah, I can believe it. And by the way, Stephanie's saying thank you for the praise. You're an unofficial member of the crew. Who are you kidding? So,
Hmm.
don't ever sell yourself short. Every once in a while there is something you know a heck of a lot better than we do, and I I I intentionally steer away from areas I know that you know so much more than me because it's intimidating. All right, fine, I admit it now. Just fuck off. I don't care. Whatever. Anyway.
So
Yeah.
when you shun somebody that's part of your religion, you are taking away their faith based social support. You declare them mentally ill in order to rattle their nerves,
Or worse.
or worse. And as soon as you label somebody as mentally ill, you basically devalue them and dehumanize them. Yet some of the best artists, best writers, best musicians in the world were mentally ill. Van Gogh cut off his ear. Tell me that wasn't a mental illness attack. It might have been something that he had for years, or it might have just been a spike. And that's the other thing about mental illness.
Yeah, how do
There
you
are
hit him?
spikes.
Yeah, how do you hit a moving target like that in such an incredibly complex piece?
There are spikes. Why is there a spike? Could something bad have happened to the person? Could it have been a huge trauma? Could they have been raised wrong and don't know how to deal with what they were raised with, with what's going on? To quote Sir Thomas More, "For if you suffer your people to be ill educated and their manners to be corrupted from their infancy, and then punish them for those crimes to which their first education disposed them, what else is to be concluded from this but that you first make thieves and punish them? What else is to be concluded about mental illness, that you first make them ill and then forcibly treat them?"
Now, how about somebody like me? I've said on many an occasion that the experience of my wife's death damaged me mentally in ways that I cannot fully comprehend. But I know that I have had problems in the way that my brain operates. Was my brain physically injured? In the,
Yes.
in the traditional sense of physically injured, no. There was no trauma that was induced through sudden acceleration decelerations. I didn't bang my head against a wall. I didn't have a car accident and have my neck snapped around or anything like that. But was there trauma involved? Well, as Io said, and I'm going to give her the opportunity to go ahead and put it right there. Go ahead and put it. You already said the word.
I
Say,
did?
say the word again.
Huh?
The word is yes.
Oh, yeah, you got hurt. You got hurt really bad. There's a theory that while the heart is not necessarily a second brain in the full sense, it does contain a complex network of neurons. And I'm amazed you didn't have a heart attack the moment your wife died. I'm amazed you survived. And I know exactly why you survived. Tiny Treble. They
Yeah.
needed you.
I
S-
I gave her my word. I will not go back on my word.
In
Period. End
fact,
of story.
I believe you decided that you were not going to have another relationship, not just because of how much you loved your wife, but because you were afraid that a second relationship, losing someone like that again, you'd be lost. And that wouldn't be fair for Tiny Tribble.
That is
My spouse,
literally exactly it.
my
That
spouse,
literally is it.
my spouse 2 years ago had a heart attack. There was at least two events after his heart attack, after he was in the ICU, where I should have been probably taken down to the ER and had a full workup. I went bradycardic twice. I was down to 30 beats twice. If he had died, I think I would have followed real quick. Because just the shock of what had happened to him, his open heart surgery, his quadruple bypass, it was too much for me. And I don't know how I survived that. And years ago, my family doctor in Canada actually diagnosed me with broken heart syndrome because of a huge emotional upset I had. Because I had all the symptoms, but he didn't actually do any of the tests for it, as in, other than an EKG, he did not do a scan of my heart. But I had all the symptoms and my heart sounded off, and it took several months for it to go back to normal. So I know if I have a huge enough emotional upset, it's going to kill me. Unless I too have something to live for. I don't know how I survived his heart attack. I really don't. Those two events of being bradycardic, holy. If I had not been wearing my Apple Watch, and it had not woken me up, I still wear it at night, I would have been dead. Because it noticed that my heartbeat was too slow for too long and started buzzing and waking me up.
I, for one, am just glad that you're still about.
Yeah, I'm a pain in your ass.
I'll live with it.
I know that there's at least 2 women that really love you. At least I think they're women. I don't know. I don't care. You're on the internet. You are what you are. Possibly a couple others.
I can hope.
Oh, I know.
We're at the top of the hour, and we got to see about wrapping this up. We did not exactly go as deep into the original topic as I was planning on, but you know what? That's okay. Considering some of the areas that we did get into, that definitely proves that there's far and away more to the universe than what somebody's book will tell you. Yeah, I think it's fair to go with that.
One of the weapons that religious people use against atheists is calling us mentally ill for not having a God, not believing in God. And honestly, I think that they're mentally ill for not being willing to take their own responsibility for shit. Whenever Easter comes around and people are going, Jesus rose, da 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 da, I start joking about, is it werewolf Jesus, lich Jesus, or vampire Jesus this year? I also tell people to let that poor man rest in peace. He's been a scapegoat for over 2,000 years. Let him be. Take charge of your own life. But he died for our sins. We, well, then we should sin more so that his death was worth it. Oh, you can't do that. It gets very funny.
Well, let's also remember, he died for my sins. He was asleep for a weekend. He had a bender, and he woke up. I don't know what the problem is. So just deal. Anyway, Stephanie's also has also said this was far more interesting than the original topic. I'm going to credit that to Io. Thank you for being so honest, and Io has it in 1. Well done.
I do.
Apparently you got it. So good on you.
What did I get? Stephanie, help me.
You know what? You didn't get what's behind door number 2, which is a goat, apparently, this week. I don't know.
If you're going to be religious, that's fine. Religion is like a penis. You can talk about it, but don't shove it down my throat or my children's throats. Or any child's throats. Oh, did you hear about how the only Bibles that are supposed to be used in this one oh
Yeah. That's gonna be coming up in the near future. Believe me. I didn't have time enough to really delve enough into it to properly understand it. So yeah, it's a coming. Don't worry, it's a coming. There is a thing that ended up happening over here in the U.S. and we will be covering it. If you want to find out a little bit more about it, join us over on the HCTV Discord. You'll see it over there in the general section, I believe it is. Bridget put it in there, and yeah, that is going to be a topic in very, very short order. Was there any last?
It's Oklahoma.
Which of course it's Oklahoma. Well, not exactly. Of course it is, but of course it is.
50,000 Bibles in times, was it $60 each? Yeah, that's a nice chunk of change for the Trump.
Yeah, that like I said, that'll be a little bit later. Since we got to close out, there anything really quick that you want to close off with?
Well, I'm not really an atheist. There's something out there because it's out to get me. got you laughing. I can see it. You want to laugh. Um, if you have religion, don't try shoving it into other people's face and trying to get them to convert. I didn't need to know that I would be going to hell because I found out about heaven and Jesus, and by not being a Christian, I'd be going to hell. I didn't need to know that. Besides that, hell's where all the atheists are, and it's going to be a party. There's a stairway to heaven and a highway to hell, and I got a Porsche.
And Lemmy's already down there, so sure, why the hell not? For me, I'm going to end off with this. The original idea was that people in these groups are intentionally dissuaded from looking past their noses, figuratively speaking. Just keep looking on the inside. Don't look outside. Don't look past the next doorway. Don't look past the next wall. And then they do, because inevitably they do, because kids are inquisitive. They want to learn. It's only in our adulthoods that we start to get, less wanting to learn so much. Kids are the ones who will be the end of groupthink. And people are going to go ahead and they're going to say, well, they've got their own little groupthink thing. I mean, they have their own culture because they are people, they are minds who are growing up in similar circumstance. Every generation has got their own thing. So if you want to go ahead and you want to excommunicate all the kids, or even most of the kids, and by kids I even mean, into their teens, well, that's all well and good. But statistics don't lie. You go ahead and you get rid of whatever the percentage is, but you're not gaining that number back. Sooner or later, you're going to reach the uncritical mass, if you'll pardon the expression, and your group will simply fizzle out into non-existence, irrelevance, eventually to be forgotten. If all the knowledge in the world was forgotten, guess what would grow up in its place eventually? Scientific discovery. And all the facts that we have now and are ever going to learn will be rediscovered. So think about that the next time you wonder, should you slap a kid for asking questions, figuratively or literally? Because they're going to be the ones that are going to have to take care of you later. You want to be good to them. And ultimately, you want to be good to yourself. I think it's late enough, and I think it's time for me to go ahead and call it a night. Over in the chat, Stephanie, thank you as always. Secret, not quite sure if you had to take off, but thank you for being part of it. We knew that Fearless was not going to be here. She's out doing things. I don't know that there are auroras that she's able to see tonight, but on wherever you are, you take care of yourself. Ayo, thank you for putting up with me again, as usual, and you have yourself a good week.
Oh, if you do your horse avatar again, I'm going to land on your butt and tap dance.
That's a Second Life thing, people. You can look up about it later. We can expect that because it's coming up on proper spooky season, and I've got a couple avatars that I need to make sure that I do. So thank you, hon. I appreciate it.
Hey, I wore my first one on yesterday.
That's true.
The Mexican spirit animal. Aborigines? I can't pronounce it right now.
That's okay.
Have a sweet sleep.
Oh, I know that I will. In the meantime, of course, everyone, thank you for being part of this all, and we hope that you have yourself a safe week as all. If you'd like to join us next week, we'll be around, assuming that I'm conscious enough for it. I'm lucky enough I made it off this week. If you'd like to be in touch with us, all of our contact information is over there at holycrapthevlogcast.com. We encourage you to join us over there on Facebook. I'm still going to call it Twitter. Screw that. Blue Sky. And, of course, very specifically over on Discord, because there's always stuff going on over there. Not always, but, it's always a spot. And we'll see you next week. So till the next time we're together, as always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And of course, my lady, over 19 years later, I am still in love. Well, Matane Fujin. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we're together, everyone, as always, good night.